Welcome back to Radio Entrepreneurs. My name is Alex Cooper, filling in for Jeffrey Davis this morning. We're broadcasting from the offices of Best of Care in Quincy, and I'm here with the president and COO of Best of Care, Kevin Smith. Good morning, Kevin. How are you?
Good morning, Alex. I'm doing well. How are you today?
I'm very well. So I'm reading a lot about you in the news lately.
Yes, I think you're referring to the articles in the Boston Globe that recently ran last week, addressing some issues with the home care industry that the particular author who wrote those articles had experienced personally, and was also sort of reporting on sort of a broad strokes level, I would say.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it sounds like there's a lot of challenges in the industry as we...
Yes, I mean, the challenges are certainly significant, and we've addressed those on this podcast in the past, but just to sort of rehash, there are so many people that do this work in this industry, both those who work for agencies like Best of Care or any of our colleagues, but also people who do this independently, who are perhaps getting hired through Craigslist or Care.com or some other affiliates who may not have the exact same set of standards, credentials, and criteria that agencies who work with the state and have state contracts do with respect to maintaining a certain level of compliance with those contracts specific to the language in them. And what I mean is they don't really have to do the same things that everybody else does. And that can be troublesome because they may not always use the same amount of oversight, supervision, and adherence to regulation than most of the people in this industry do. And unfortunately, when aides working in that arena do something that's newsworthy, it can cast a shadow on the rest of the industry that's trying to do things professionally and do them the right way.
Well, it seems like it's a hard balance to strike to, so police people doing this on their own and working through a professional agency like yours.
That's true, and one of the difficulties with that in Massachusetts is that there's a low barrier to entry in this industry in terms of setting up a home care agency. Now, for those of us who contract with the state of Massachusetts through the Executive Office of Elder Affairs, it's a rigorous bid process in which you need to be approved. You need to provide all sorts of supporting documentation and evidence to prove that you're a legitimate agency who is operational and doing things the right way, whereas people working in the strictly private pay market with just individual clients paying them and not receiving any state-funded reimbursement, there is less regulation on that side of the street. And unfortunately, bad things can happen on that side of the street, and as I mentioned a moment ago, it can sometimes get projected to sort of paint the industry with a broad brush. And unfortunately, I think that that's the experience that got detailed in those Globe articles.
Interesting. So is there anything in the works to help address that problem?
Well, I certainly think that some improved licensure in the industry could be helpful. But I think more importantly than that, or perhaps equally as important as that, is the work of agency owners and trade associations like the one that we belong to, the Home Care Aid Council, is to continue to try to elevate the work that we do and make the public aware that there is a very legitimate group of businesses in the state, across the Commonwealth, who are in fact doing things the right way and can prove it. And that by being a member of the council, for example, that you are proving that you adhere to a very specific set of standards in the way that you operate. So I think that increasing some awareness, better public visibility about the importance of the work that our aides do, which is very, very challenging and hard work to care for people who are aging or people who have disabilities, is a tremendous step that we can all try to take to make the public more aware of the good work that we do, rather than letting some of those bad experiences overshadow the good things.
Yeah, certainly that makes sense. And I guess overall, and sort of the big picture of this, this problem that society has to face in terms of managing the cost of doing this versus
That's true.
the alternatives.
That's true. And cost is one issue that people run into when they need to decide between working with an agency or perhaps hiring a person individually. Now, one of the big challenges that you would face as a consumer to hire a person individually are some of the benefits that you would get from working with an agency. For example, workers' compensation. If a person is injured while working in your home, that's a potential liability for you as the consumer who's paying for this person's services to care for either yourself or a loved one. If you're working with an agency, you would have the assurance that the company carries that type of insurance so that they're the ones responsible for the claim, and they are the ones responsible for working with their own employee to resolve the situation. Payroll, the agency is paying that individual to go to your home. You are not personally issuing a check to that person and worrying about all the necessary statutory payroll deductions and taxes and things of the like. And then more importantly, backup and supervision. If you hire one person who you're relying on to deliver critical care to your loved one, and they have an accident or an emergency, what are you going to do? When you're working with an agency, you have the ability to call them and look for a substitute or a fill-in worker, whether it's for a day, a week, a month, or an extended period of time. At least the agency is going to have the human capital resources to deliver a backup person to make sure that you or the person who needs the care is getting it consistently.
Very interesting.
So those are just a couple of the sort of differences, key differences between going the individual route. And that's not to say that that route doesn't work for families, both from a cost and effectiveness standpoint, but I like to think that working with an agency provides more benefits than not.
It's sort of analogous to daycare.
It's not unlike daycare,
Yeah.
as somebody who utilizes daycare
Yeah,
for their
just
own
got through
children.
that.
Yeah, I can certainly see the analogy there, but obviously the spectrum of age is certainly much different, and the makeup of the individuals might vary, but when you boil it all down, you're still looking for a human being to match with another human being, find that right fit, develop a bond, and deliver high quality care so that everybody else involved in the situation can have some peace of mind.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you, Alex.
This is Radio Entrepreneurs. We'll be right back after these messages.